A guy whose parents were actual communists, he was too. He now spends more time fighting for the other side and is probably one of the biggest American heroes alive today. I want you to meet him next. David Horowitz is a guy who has just put out a new book called A Point in Time, The Search for Redemption in This Life and the Next. I just asked David, I asked him in the hallway, I said, David, why did you write, are you dying? Because this is a very philosophical book, and you're not dying, are you?
No, I'm not.
All right, good.
I've written 3 books about mortality, though. But
why are you fascinated by it?
Well, I'm 72 years old.
You are not. Are you really?
Yeah. I had a prostate cancer 10 years ago, actually right after 9/11. And when you get, you're still young, Glenn, but when you get sort of pushing 70, you have to think about final things. I mean,
you just do not look 70. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that. You just to put you into context for anybody who doesn't know, give it a little bit of history of your childhood and the 60s.
I was born into a communist family. Both my parents were card-carrying members, and our whole community was communist. I was one of the founders of the New Left in the 60s, and the New Left was really founded by children of communists. That's how it was founded, who felt that Stalin had tainted socialism, and we were going to revive it. Not that we were going to change it, but we were going to revive it, but make it palatable to ordinary people.
Did you hang out with people like Bill Ayers?
Yeah, I interviewed Bill Ayers. I despised Bill Ayers even when I was a Marxist revolutionary. But he was a rich kid who was thoughtless, who boasted that and this is when he was a senior in college, that he hadn't read a book in a year, and yet was playing with people's lives. He was a violent and destructive human being. I despised him. But I knew them all. I knew Hayden. I knew Hayden pretty well, actually. Tom Hayden.
How have you? I'm getting to the reflective part here, and
Yes.
And your book is, I have to tell you, by page 4, I said to myself, this is one of the most beautifully written books I have read in a long time. By page 8, and I have to make decisions on what books I'm going to read all the way through, quickly. By page 8, and this usually does not happen by page 8. By page 8, I knew it's a book I'm going to read all the way through. I mean, it's really, really well done.
Thank you.
But
put a lot of work into that.
Tell me, how you have. Here you are, a guy who knows it inside and out, and then people like me come along who don't know it. I didn't know, David, when the first time we talked, I didn't even know who you really were. I didn't really know what progressivism was. I didn't believe in communists hanging around, and I didn't believe in any of that stuff. How have you stood as a sentinel for so long with so much hatred, so everybody has tried to destroy you, without losing your mind, knowing what was happening to our country, and nobody would listen?
I was actually brought up that way, when you think about it. My parents were communists in the darkest moments of the Cold War. So we were an isolated community. And, my school fights were over Russia. So I was really brought up to this, in this way. And to use a terrible California term, I'm living out of karma. I felt I had to take what I knew and resolve it in the end. And this book really, A Point in Time, is a summation. It's a small book, but it took me 3 years to write, because I I thank you for recognizing that.
No, it's really nice. It's beautiful.
So I tried to make it.
So what did you?
So people,
what'd you find?
The heart of the book is this and that. You know, it's like you have to ask yourself, why do people hate America? Who could hate America? Why do they hate conservatives the way they do? You can see it every time they practically open their mouths. They hate us. And I understand this in my bones because, you know, I grew up in
the hate.
In the hate. And what it comes from is a vision of a future in which is perfect, where there's no racism, no sexism, no war, no poverty, social justice, where there's a world that's just and perfect. That's, if you believe that you can achieve that, then anybody who stands in your way, well, first of all, you see yourself as the army of the saints, and everybody who's opposing you is the party of Satan. And if you think of hellfire and damnation preachers, you understand that's what liberals are.
Well, you see it in
that's their vision.
You see it in Al Gore.
Oh, of course.
You see it and in anybody who's on this climate thing is, if you disagree with it, you're directly from hell.
Exactly. And so then I had to ask myself, where does this come from? And it's interesting. I mean, if you look at it, you can see the decline of organized religion sort of comes from around Darwin. And that's when you have the rise of socialism, communism, fascism.
Progressivism.
Right. All these secular isms are really searches for redemption, but in this life and achieved by human beings.
This is where President Obama gets the collective salvation that he is always preaching about, which is the exact opposite of, if you're a Christian, the exact opposite understanding of what Christ did.
Exactly.
There is no collective salvation.
Exactly. And the one sort of addition you have to make to that is the Islamists who believe in redeeming this world. They're not religious in the sense, I mean, a true Christian or a true Jew understands that only God can make it right. There's an angel with a flaming sword at the gates of Eden, which was our paradise, preventing us from returning. You can only return through a divinity. And Genesis is a very profound understanding and statement about human beings.
Hang on, say that again. That is such an important statement about the Garden of Eden. Say that again.
Yeah, when God expelled us from the Garden of Eden, he put an angel with a flaming sword to prevent us from returning. And the message there is that we're the problem. It's not society. Society is just a reflection of who we are. We are the problem, and we can't fix it. That, if you understand that, then you are a conservative. If you think that the human problem can be fixed by other human beings, then you're a leftist, and you're a very dangerous person.
Okay, so the left, I believe there are two categories in the left. There are those who really do have this hope, this idealistic hope, and they're generally young, that think, oh, you know what? We can get past that. We can have a big government that can just get rid of all the bad guys. But it's a simpleton's understanding of the human condition.
It's a youthful.
Yes.
Because youth do not understand what people. You have to have been through life, have been betrayed.
Over and over again. And even been betrayed by good people who were your good friends, who just had a moment in time where they just went off the tracks, and all of a sudden they're betraying people.
And then you have to see into yourself and see your own weaknesses.
Correct.
So
there's those people, and then there's the nasty ones that really know, that are just doing it for power and.
Well, exactly. And then, you start off as an idealist, but when you go out. Chanting, as was the big slogan for my generation, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? Now, I remember as a leftist thinking, would I rather be a hostage or a prisoner to Lyndon Johnson or Ho Chi Minh? Where would my chances be better? And that was, one of the beginnings of my understanding how wrong we were. So it can start with an idealism, but that ideal, the higher the ideal, the more beautiful the idea of what you can achieve in this life, the more destruction and the more hate will enter your soul. Because
unless it's based on the individual ideal,
it's different.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the salvation of an individual soul, it's very different. A truly religious person understands that we see through a glass darkly, and only after we die will we see face to face, assuming that there is a meaning and an order to the universe. And of course, nobody knows. You can't know. And that's why it's a matter of faith.
David, I have to tell you, you were raised in this hatred. You have a reason to hate. So many people have spent their entire life trying to destroy you. I know what this is like from the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it is exhausting. It really is exhausting. And I have found my way of being able to find meaning in what I do and find meaning in their hate. And I'm actually growing in love. I actually am less angry today than I was 4 years ago, which I think is a miracle in and of itself. How did you do that?
Well, it's been a lot easier since Obama was elected, because
it's out in the open.
It's in the open, and conservatives have finally waked up. And conservatives were very kind to me, considering who I had been. I mean, I was a leader of the New Left. And it's one thing when you first give it up and make the statement, okay, everybody is happy. But I've been sustained by conservative support, and that made it somewhat easier. But now there are so many. Well, I have to say, you had the biggest influence on releasing me from the frustrations of being a Cassandra. Suddenly, I see. I mean, I feel very much at peace now. I feel that if I had to leave this earth, there are torchbearers behind me, and you are the leading one.
That is
in that case. I used to when I watched your show, especially when you were when I was first getting to know it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was just so happy. There's a certain sadness that I have because I feel our country is at stake, and America is completely unique. I mean, there's no other country in the world like it. It's an experiment in democracy that others have tried to follow, but if we're gone, it's gone.
All right. I want to spend just a couple more minutes with you. I have to take a quick break. I can't recommend all of David Horowitz's books highly enough. This guy knows it firsthand. He sees it, and he sees the way out. His latest, which will be a New York Times bestseller again, is just a remarkable book, A Point in Time, The Search for Redemption in This Life and the Next. Pick it up. It's available everywhere now and available on Amazon.com. A Point in Time by David Horowitz. When we come back, I want to ask David a little bit about if you have one piece of advice on the Middle East, on what people need to understand, because I don't think people have really tied in why I went to Israel. I can't seem to get this connection to people on, oh, wow, this does make a difference because the left is doing this intentionally. And the one piece of advice that you would give on people who are just picking up the torch and saying, okay, I don't really understand it all yet, but I'm going to stand. What is your piece of advice? We're having a conversation with somebody that America should pay attention to and catch up with. David Horowitz, who has been standing guard and sentinel and been trying to tell the truth for a very long time. His time has come. You know, everybody has their moment in time, David, you know, it's like Ronald Reagan said, time just caught up with him. He didn't change. It just caught up. Everything caught up with him. This is David's time. All of his work now is finally being seen as the important work that it is, as America is no longer dismissing it. He has a new book out called A Point in Time that I can't recommend highly enough. David Horowitz, A Point in Time. I just want to run down, because I just have so few times to actually sit down and talk with you, David. Let's go back into, we were talking about Israel a second ago, the global change that is coming, and the, quote, conspiracy theory, end quote, that there are forces around the world that want to change everything, and they are playing dangerous games with fire called Islamic extremism. And this move for a caliphate to sweep the Middle East. Crazy? Conspiracy theory?
Totally right. It's interesting. The Pew Trust, which is a liberal foundation, just did a poll among American Muslims, and they found that 60% of American Muslims are concerned or very concerned about growing extremism in the Muslim community in this country.
Did you see Peter King's
if
hearing?
You say that, or Peter King says that, or I say that, we're Islamophobes.
Right.
And the problem is that it's the heart of the Democratic Party that's saying it, but there's also a lot of it in the Republican Party.
The people that were testifying with Peter King, the Muslims, were begging America, please help us. Help us. There's growing extremism. Help us.
This is an unfortunate thing that I'm going to say, but this is a reality. America is because it's still a free country, is basically a happy country. And so people don't, there's an element of people do not want to face the reality. In 1941, April, Gallup conducted a poll. And now, in 1941, April, Hitler had overrun all of Western Europe. The Japanese had run all of Southeast Asia, Manchuria. Gallup did a poll among Americans. Should America get into the war? 80% of Americans said no. What changed that and changed it overnight was Pearl Harbor. We saw one wake-up call over 9/11, but basically the country goes back to its happy ways since then. So there is going to be a day of reckoning, and it's going to cost American lives. And at that point, people are going to wake up and understand this
I'm
threat.
very concerned that the progressive left, the radical left, the revolutionaries that are in office now and have control of the Democratic Party have done so much with, for instance, Cass Sunstein, that all they're waiting for is an emergency. They're trying to foment revolution. So what happened in Hungary to transform that nation into a communist country can happen.
But they don't. They want to foment their own little crisis.
Right.
But the fact is,
to be able to have the top come down.
When there is an Islamic attack on America, they're going to be in trouble. Most Americans, you can see most Americans actually understand somewhat of what's going on. 70% of New Yorkers were against that mosque near Ground Zero, despite, all the Democrats on the other side and a lot of Republicans, doing their appeasement dance. So I have a great confidence in the American people. They're slow to wake up, but when they do, look out. And, that's kind of what kept me going, when I was sort of felt like a Cassandra crying in the wilderness. But I've seen a great wake-up call, beginning with your shows, then the Tea Party. The Tea Party is an amazing development in American politics. I don't have much confidence in the Republican Party, although I want to see it's vital for the country that Obama be defeated.
Is there anybody?
And the Democrats.
Is there anybody?
I think any one of them except for Ron Paul. I think Ron Paul is a menace, and I've said this. His foreign policy is basically the leftist foreign policy. Very, very dangerous. But I don't think he has a prayer of getting the nomination.
Do you think he's an anti-Semite?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
He because of what he did in his newsletter, and because he is so tone deaf to the plight of Israel, and that, I mean, if you look at Israel and you're not looking at it as Jews, what do you see? You see a tiny little democracy, really tiny, in the Middle East, and a massive genocidal movement around it to utterly destroy it. And that doesn't get Ron Paul interested at all in defending Israel.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let's look at it. Let me play devil's advocate here. Let's look at it as a founder, and a founder would say, you know what, we are an enemy to none and a friend to all, and everybody has to stand on their own two legs.
Yeah, but
Israel has a right.
How long did it take to cross the ocean when the founders founded the country? I mean, look, America's vulnerable. We've been...
Well, I will tell you this: the founders also. I mean, Pat, you're probably more astute on this than I am. The founders took on Islamic extremists,
right?
Hard.
The Barbary pirates.
Hard. Mm-hmm. And in fact, David Barton and I were talking about this the other day. The Quran, that Ellison used to swear in on, the Quran that he used was Thomas Jefferson's Quran. But what was the fact? Were you there when David was talking about this?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I have to get this fact from him. The first Qurans printed here in America had like a warning label on them saying, hey, we're printing this so you could see.
Yeah, weren't they trying to figure out the Barbary pirates?
Yeah,
weren't they trying to figure out their religiosity?
That's why Thomas Jefferson got it, because he was trying to figure it out. Saying,
it's a warrior religion.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus was a carpenter who preached peace. It was completely nonviolent. Muhammad was a warrior and wiped out a whole Jewish community, committed a genocide and killed Christians.
But see,
wherever they went, they put a mosque on top of whatever, or changed a church into a mosque, or built a mosque on the top of Solomon's temple.
But you can't... you just said 60% of Muslims are worried about extremism.
Right,
so there are good Muslims.
Good Muslims, of course, because people need meaning in their lives. There are all things that religions do. If you pray 5 times a day, you're a Muslim. I mean, a lot of Muslims don't know what's in the Quran, and would not be on board for this. But unfortunately, they're pretty silent.
Well, I will tell you this. I've just spent a while with Joshua, and you read Joshua. Joshua is extraordinarily violent, and God is saying, go kill them all.
Yes, but who is he? They're killing the Amalekites. There are no Amalekites around. The Muslims were killing Jews and Christians. There are plenty of them around.
Okay. Let me go to the progressive right. I've been warning about the progressive right. You believe in a progressive right?
Who are you thinking?
I don't know who would come spring to mind.
John McCain.
Yeah, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, that believe in the big government of progressives.
Yeah,
and are doing
and also, there's also a calculation. I mean, buying votes. I mean, I forget the name of the guy. I've quoted him in the past, but. Somebody at the outset of the Republic said that when the people discover they can vote themselves money, it's all over. Mm-hmm. And Bush did that with the prescription drug program. It's an attempt to buy constituencies. A lot of Republicans and conservatives don't get it, because what you understand and what we've been talking about is a war that's going on in this country. Now, if you're a traditional conservative, that's very unpleasant to contemplate, and it's something you want to avoid. Somebody put it to me this way: we are creators, they are destroyers.
Yes,
very different mentality.
Yes.
So creators, a conservative is brought up Probably, most conservatives would have Christian values. So, it's love your neighbor. Conservatives are in business and productive enterprises. In business, you don't want to alienate customers. You avoid conflict. You're brought up. Your reputation is the most important thing that you have. So you don't want to be attacked as the way the left attacks. That's how conservatives just get out of their way. And I lived with that, having come over to the right for many, many years. I mean, I could see that people were sort of uncomfortable with what I was saying. I did a pamphlet called The Art of Political War. And what it explained is that Democrats see politics as war continued by other means. And Republicans have their heads in the sand and ignore that. I had one of my supporters saying, I won't give you money, David, unless you take that war out.
Well, but you have...
They started the war.
You have the president not going after Hoffa this week with his language.
Because he totally identifies with what Jimmy Hoffa said.
But I mean, that is really an amazing...
It is. It's a direct assault on democracy. The whole idea of democracy is that we agree to disagree, and then when the next election comes...
meet me on the battlefield of ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah, all right.
And so,
David Horowitz is the man that you've been listening to, and the author of a great book, A Point in Time, The Search for Redemption in This Life and the Next. David, I hope we spend some more time together in the future.
Thank you.
Please read his entire catalog. Go out and buy one book, and then we'll buy the next one and the next one. He gets it, unlike really anybody else, because he's seen it firsthand from the inside, starting at birth with his parents as communists. A Point in Time by David Horowitz.